Recording in progress.
Good evening. I think we're going to get started if you want to take a seat. Thank you for being here. This is a hybrid meeting, so we have you all in person, and then we also have some folks on Zoom. So we're going to do our best to use the microphones so the folks on Zoom can hear us as well. So we really appreciate you being here tonight. My name's Amy Lyle. I'm the Community Development Director here. And then we have our full planning team. We have Tracy, our associate planner, Claire, our assistant planner, and Martha, our senior planner, who's also our project planner for this. And then we also have Anne, our assistant town attorney. And feel free to come in, have a seat. So just some logistics. If you have not been to our new town hall, welcome. The bathrooms are just right outside in the hallway here. We do have an elevator. If you parked down below, those doors are open as well. We do have drinks in the back and some food, so feel free at any point to get a beverage or a snack as we move along here. We will be doing a survey using your phones, so have your phone out. We'll have a QR code so you can participate in the survey. We're just going to do a really short one in the beginning and one at the end just to make sure we're really getting everyone's input tonight. So as you know, this is a meeting about a development proposal that we have at 240 Tamal Vista. We're very early in the process. Our goal tonight is to really make sure that we're getting all the feedback we can to be able to analyze the project and work with the applicants to bring the project back with whatever input that you all need. And it will be a few months before this comes back. So we'll talk about the process going forward, but tonight is really an open community meeting to get feedback on the project as you've seen it so far. And then next Tuesday, we will also be in this room with our planning commission for a study session. So that will be another early opportunity to provide comment, input. That will have a lot more technical information. Tonight, we're going to try to get through a presentation relatively quickly to be able to get to your comments. So we'll have about a 20-minute presentation, and then the rest of the time until about 8 o'clock is yours to provide feedback on the project. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to remind everyone that this is a more casual environment. This isn't a planning commission meeting where we have really regimented timelines. We have enough people where we'll probably keep comments to around 3 minutes. So we'll take comments from in person first, and then we'll go to Zoom. And then we'll come back in person if there's still more people that would like to comment. But I just wanted to note that we're really hoping to create a very safe, inclusive environment. Really hoping everyone feels comfortable here, feels like they can be heard, feels like they can speak freely. We will not tolerate any hateful speech or actions in person or on Zoom. So we will end the meeting if we have to on Zoom and just do in person. If something happens in person, we'll end the meeting here. So I just want to make that very clear that we want this to be a really productive conversation, and we want to be able to hear everyone and your feedback. All right. So with that, I will turn it over to Martha to talk about the agenda for tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for participating in tonight's meeting. So as Amy mentioned, we're going to start off with a survey. So everyone have your phones ready. It's a Menti survey. You'll be able to join on your phone either with entering a code, or there's also a QR code that you can click on as well. After the survey, there'll be a staff presentation. I'll be providing an overview of the adopted Corte Madera housing element and also of pertinent state housing laws, and then providing a brief overview of the project. And then the project team is also going to be providing a presentation over Zoom. Their architect and landscape architect are attending remotely. And then we're going to have public comments after that, and then some closing and wrap up and next steps. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Claire, who is going to go over the survey.
As we're getting that pulled up, I know someone said they didn't have a phone, so I would be very persuasive to your neighbor.
You'll see some instructions. So you can scan the QR code and it'll take you directly to the survey, or you can type into your browser menti.com and then it will give you an option to type in the code, and it's that 8-letter code on the right, and that will engage you. So we'll be able to collect your information, your answers for later, and then we'll also be able to see, it's kind of interactive and we can see the thoughts of everyone who's participating on the screen as well. So I'll give everyone a moment to connect and for those online to connect as well. Yeah. Do you know the password?
That for you. There is a password. Oh, Rebecca, our assistant town manager, can provide it.
I think you're right. So yeah, if you're in the room, so I think the password's welcome, then the number 2 TCM, all lowercase. All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and go to the first question. All right, so the first question is, how did you hear about this meeting? And we have a few options here. We publicize the meeting in a variety of different ways. And I think it allows you to select more than one answer. So if you heard it from multiple sources, you can select both of those.
And even though we're on the first question, you can still join. Go to menti.com and then the code is up at the top. So if you need us to, we can tell you what the code is because it's really small on our screen. Yes, menti.com.
All right, we're going to move on to the next question. So this one is an open response, and we're going to ask in one word, what is your biggest concern about the proposed project? Those will go on screen.
Thank you all for responding. This is a fun survey because you can see it real time. So we're getting responses from you all and those on Zoom as well. So it also just gives a flavor of what people are thinking and if there's things that multiple people are thinking. So the bigger the word is, that means multiple people have entered that word.
I'm going to move on to the next question now. So this one is, are you in support of housing in Corte Madera? All right, I'm going to go to the next one. This one is, what kinds of housing are you supportive of in Corte Madera? And this one is, and also you can select more than one option. So you can select as many as you'd like. All right, and I think that may be our last one. Oh, and this is another free response, kind of open response one. And that's, what questions are you hoping to have answered at this meeting?
So this one does not have to be one word. You can enter a phrase, a sentence, a question, however you would like to express your question. One thing I did not mention is that we are going to record this. The workshop tonight will be posted on our website, but we'll also post the responses to our survey questions as well. And so that way you can, because it's pretty hard to read in this format.
All right. Gonna move on. I think that, yep, that was the last one. So we're gonna take it back to the presentation. Thanks for participating, everyone.
Okay, so the first item on the agenda is an overview of the Corte Madera housing element. And this may be a review for many people that were involved in the housing element update process that we recently completed. So a housing element is one of the mandated elements of a general plan. And unlike other elements, it's required to be approved by another state agency, the HCD, which is the California Department of Community Housing and Community Development. And a general plan is updated every 8 years. And as part of that process, the town identifies locations of future housing sites. We are currently in the 6th cycle housing element, which covers years 2023 through 2031. And as part of the implementation of the housing element, the town submits an annual report to HCD every year. And the report includes information on the number of building permits that have been issued, and also on our progress in implementing programs in the general plan or in the housing element. So on June 20th, 2023, the Corte Madera Town Council adopted the 6th cycle housing element for years 2023 through 2031. The housing element was certified by HCD on August 15th, 2023. And the adopted housing element identified 10 housing opportunity sites that were comprised of 18 parcels. The property at 240 Tamal Vista is one of these sites that is in the housing element. And the housing opportunity sites were selected to meet the town's regional housing needs allocation, which is also known as the RHNA. And the identified housing opportunity sites were discussed at multiple planning commission and town council meetings, and also at community workshops as well. And the identified housing opportunity sites were increased, the allowable densities were increased, most from 15.1 units an acre up to 25 to 40 units an acre, depending on the site. So one of the most significant components of a housing element is the housing sites inventory. And this requires the town to identify specific locations where housing developments are allowed, and it also establishes the permitted densities. The town's RHNA allocation for the current cycle is 725 units, and the RHNA is divided among different income levels, which includes a very low, low, moderate, and above moderate. This slide also shows the percentage of area median income to fall within these different categories.
While you're changing slides, I just want to note that the housing element requires us to plan for this many units, and that's why the sites have been identified and we're part of the housing element. That doesn't mean they will all be developed. So it's making sure that we have capacity to be able to accommodate that number of units in that income category for each.
And housing is considered affordable when the total housing cost, including utilities, comprises 30% of someone's income. State law describes 5 different income categories, which are shown on this slide. It includes extremely low, very low, low, and median, and then moderate. A variety of housing types is essential to provide housing options for individuals and families in both lower and higher incomes. A mix of housing opportunities also means, among other things, that young adults can return to the communities where they grew up, and that there is housing for workers such as teachers and firefighters and healthcare workers in the communities where they work. This slide shows the income that a household can earn in a year to qualify for these different types of income categories. And you'll notice that a family of 4 in Marin County can make nearly $150,000 and still qualify as low income. And this is because the average median income, the AMI in Marin County, is so high. It's one of the highest in the state. The proposed project at 240 Tamal Vista would provide 98 units for lower income households, and then there would be one manager unit. So it would be within the very low and low income. It would be a mix of the two, and the amount is not determined for sure at this point because it has to do with federal tax credits. But they would all be lower income.
And these income categories and the income you see here, this changes every year. So it is posted on the state's website, and it's different for each county. So the state actually determines what is considered affordable for these types of income categories.
The adopted housing element identified 10 housing opportunity sites shown on this map on the screen. And this map is also available in the back of the room as well. So the housing opportunity sites were rezoned to allow greater densities. 2 sites were rezoned to allow a density of 25 units an acre. Those are shown in yellow on this slide. 7 housing opportunity sites were rezoned to allow 35 units an acre, which is shown in orange. And one of those sites is 240 Tamal Vista, that's site 9. And then there was one site that was rezoned to allow 40 units an acre, which is the Macy site.
You know what? So the question was about the concentration of the housing sites, and we just have a couple more slides on the housing element, and maybe we'll stop there and see if there's, we'll answer your question and see if there's others, and then we'll turn it over to the applicant team to talk about the project itself. But I hear your question, just hang on a couple minutes here.
So 240 Tamal Vista, again, it's shown in 9 on this map, and the allowable density is 35 units an acre. The applicant is utilizing state density bonus law to increase the density beyond the base density, and I'll include some additional information on that in a later slide. So this slide shows the development standards for 240 Tamal Vista Boulevard. These standards were adopted as part of the rezoning that was done as part of the housing element update. And as part of the housing element update, the allowable density for this site was increased from 15.1 units an acre to 35 units an acre. The site is just over 1.5 acres, so that results in a base density of 55 units. The application qualifies for an 80% density bonus, and that is because it is a 100% affordable housing project. So this is a state law, and we'll provide some additional information on state density bonus, but it is something that is allowed by right, and the purpose of it is to encourage the development of affordable housing. So there have been numerous state housing bills that have been adopted in recent years. These bills are passed by the California legislature, and then all communities are required to comply with these various bills. And the point of these laws are to streamline housing development and to create some certainty for the development community. So Senate Bill 330, also known as the Housing Crisis Act of 2019, was signed in October 2019, and it became effective on January 1st, 2020. Initially, it was going to sunset on January 1st, 2025, but it has since been extended to 2030. The law was designed to address California's housing crisis by streamlining development. And the SB 330 includes provisions to eliminate delays. For instance, it limits the number of meetings to a maximum of 5, and tonight's meeting counts as one of those 5 meetings. The town is required to review a project using objective development standards, and an objective development standard are things such as height and setback and density. And the Housing Accountability Act prevents the town from using any subjective criteria to review a project. So state density bonus law, this provides developers with incentives to encourage the development of affordable and senior housing. So projects that qualify receive a density bonus, and the percent of the bonus it's a sliding scale, so it depends upon the percentage of affordable units that are provided. So in this case, the application qualifies for an 80% density bonus since 100% of the units are affordable to lower income households. There are additional tools in state density bonus law, which includes concessions and waivers. And the project qualifies for 5 concessions, and then it also qualifies for unlimited development waivers. And an applicant may request a waiver or a reduction of a particular standard if that standard would reduce the number of units that they are entitled to. So the developer, again, has requested 5 development standards, and those are reviewed by the town and by the Planning Commission, which is the decision maker for this project.
So let's pause there maybe. We really wanted to give you context over the adopted local policy, which is our housing element, and also the state legislation, which has happened over the last 5 or 10 years. That's the landscape of which we have to review this project. So I wanted to stop and see if there's technical questions about the adopted policy or the state legislation before we move forward. And Martha, do you want to address this gentleman's question about the distribution of the housing sites that was done as part of the housing element?
So as part of the housing element, the sites were discussed extensively at various community meetings, at Planning Commission and council meetings. The number of units are fairly evenly divided between the east side and the west side of Corte Madera. So, I mean, it was something that's an adopted policy of the town that ultimately was approved by the town council, but they were extensively discussed at meetings. And a lot of the sites that were selected along Tamal Vista, those are some of the larger parcels in town that are able to accommodate more units. So that was, one of the reasons why there are a handful of properties along Tamal Vista. And then we also received interest from many property owners along that corridor that were interested in having their properties rezoned as part of the housing element.
So you'll have another opportunity in a few years because this housing element cycle, we have to adopt it, write a whole new housing element and adopt it again in a few years. So we'll be ready for that. So again, I'm just asking for technical questions before we move into the presentation from the applicant. Yes.
I'm a little confused about waivers versus concessions and how much latitude the town has. I understand the applicant has things by right according to state law, but is there any space for goodwill here?
Martha, would you like to answer that one?
I'll clarify the difference.
So the question was, what is the difference between waivers and concessions, and how many does a developer get under state law?
So the terms incentives and concessions are used interchangeably, and the number that a project qualifies for is based on the percentage of affordable units. So in this case, the project qualifies for 5 incentives or concessions, and these are designed to help the development of a project be more economically feasible. So if there's a particular standard that would make a project very expensive and maybe it couldn't be built because of that, then that could be requested as a concession or an incentive. And then waivers are unlimited, the amount of waivers that can be requested. And a waiver has to do more with if there wasn't relief granted, then it would preclude the development at the permitted density. So in this case, the permitted density is 99 units. So if there's a particular standard in our code that would result in the project not being constructed at that density, then they may request a waiver from that standard. And I'll let maybe Anne, if you want to talk about the latitude of denying waivers or.
Per microphone.
There is a density bonus, which is a separate benefit to the developer under this law. The incentives and concessions are meant to allow them to avoid compliance with certain requirements that increase costs. They've only asked for one concession or waiver. I mean, one concession or incentive. The waivers are broader. I think one example that might be relevant here is if enforcing the height limit would reduce the number of units below 99, then they could ask us to waive the height limit. And our
We're not getting into the project quite yet. Let's let Anne answer this one, and then we're going to hear from the project applicant, and then we'll be able to talk more informally about the project.
yeah, the waivers are meant to make sure that the project is physically able to be built. So you could ask for a waiver for something that would block it, like a height or setback. So, okay, I don't think we're ready for that type of question yet.
Are there other questions about technical state law questions or housing element? So the question was, if all these sites are within the town limits of Corte Madera? Yes, they are. So each jurisdiction has to do their own housing element and identify their own sites. So these are only within Corte Madera.
When you considered the sites for housing, I'm noticing that 3 or 4 are right near that intersection of Lucky Drive exit and Tamal Vista. Was there traffic considerations made when you picked the sites?
Yes, so as part of the housing element update, the town prepared an environmental document. It was an EIR, an environmental impact report, and that evaluated traffic impacts of the development of all of these housing sites. All of that technical information is on our housing website, and what we can do is after this meeting, we can send out links to those various documents that include additional information on the traffic studies that were done.
Let's do one more question and then we can get to the presentation on the proposal. Yes.
What is the density of the Wind Cup project, which I think is a very nice project?
That has a density of 40 units as the density. It's a larger site, and the total number of units is 180.
Let's move on to the applicant's presentation, and then we can come back and ask more questions. Yeah.
Would like to speak. Thank you. Has there been any coordination with Larkspur on their housing unit requirements with regard to them being a contingent neighbor of us?
I can reply to that one. So as part of each housing element and the environmental review, it does, each environmental review document has to look at other projects nearby, things that are reasonably foreseeable, and look at cumulative impacts. So both Larkspur and Corte Madera both had to analyze what each other were doing, as well as all the other surrounding jurisdictions as well.
Just have a couple slides on the proposed project, and then the project architect is going to provide a presentation as well. So the project site is located in the northern portion of Corte Madera. It's located at the southwest corner of Tamal Vista Boulevard and Pfeiffer Avenue, as shown on this map. The project site is just over 1.5 acres. It's developed with a 2-story office building and a surface parking lot. There are 2 existing curb cuts, one on Tamal Vista and then a second on Lucky Drive. The project site, there's commercial uses located to the northeast of the project site, which includes a office building and then a gym and those are located across Pfeiffer Avenue. There's also commercial located to the east, which is the Joanne Fabrics, which is located across Tamal Vista Boulevard. Located to the south is the Marin Water Corporation Yard, and then to the west is the Towns Corporation Yard. There are a variety of residential uses located to the north and the northwest across Lucky Avenue, or Lucky Drive, sorry. And these include residences both in Corte Madera, Larkspur, and also Green Bay as well. The proposed development includes 99 multifamily units. The proposed building is 72 feet in height to the tallest point, and it's 6 stories. The ground floor includes a parking garage, a lobby, office, fitness center, teen room, and tech room, and some ancillary uses. The second floor includes a parking garage, and then there are 4 units on the east side of the building adjacent to Tamal Vista Boulevard. The third floor includes 23 residential units, and then there's also a landscape podium. And then floors 4, 5, and 6 are residential. There's 24 units on each of those 3 floors. And it's a mix of 3 and 4 bedroom units that range in size from just over 1,000 square feet to approximately 1,300 square feet. So now we're going to, the architect will provide a presentation.
Thank you, Amy. Am I able to share? Let's see. Are you seeing it now? No?
Yeah, we can see your screen, Mark. We ready for him to get started? Okay. Sorry, Keith, go ahead.
And are you hearing an echo?
No, we aren't.
Okay, good. Just hold on again. I apologize. Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Keith Blavis with ATGY Group, Architecture and Planning, and I'm joined tonight by Megan Palmer, also with KTGY. Also with us here tonight is Mark Schattinger. I'm trying to get it. Hold on one second. There you go. And as I was saying, also joining me tonight is Mark Schattinger with MJS Landscape. And we'll be walking you through the plans, conceptual plans here, and then opening it up for questions from all of you. So looking at the site, as was mentioned, the proposed project is 99 units, affordable units, and located here at the corner of Tamal Vista, Pfeiffer, and Lucky Drive. I'm sorry, one more time, I'm getting some feedback. There you go. As was mentioned, it's 99 affordable units in 4 levels of residential units over 2 levels of parking. And one of the most important things to notice or to note about the site is that we're located in a flood zone. So unfortunately, we can't go down with the parking. We can only go up on this site. So that's what forces us into a 6-story structure in order to fit the 99 units. And that we just had the conversation about concessions and waivers. That is what allows us to go above the already allowed 50-foot height by the general plan. So what you're looking at here in the plan is the first floor, which is primarily the first level of parking, but lined on most sides by not only service spaces for the building, but resident uses and active uses along Tamal Vista to not only screen the garage, but activate the street. The main vehicular entry is there it's the southeast corner there off Tamal Vista. And that's the only entry, and that allows for access into the garage. So at the garage level, you see it's primarily a loop with a speed ramp in the middle that takes you up to the 2nd level. The uses that are fronting the street you see here include the main lobby, I'll call it the top right corner there, leasing offices, recreational areas for teens, a fitness room, other amenities. And then there's another lobby and access point located at the corner of Pfeiffer and Tamal Vista. There's also spaces such as mail and Amazon package delivery room, bike storage, and as well as I mentioned, other service areas that screen the parking garage from site on this level. Mark, would you like to say a little bit about the landscape at the first level?
Yeah, thank you, Keith. My name is Mark Schattinger. I'm principal with MGS Landscape Architecture. We knew we had to raise the building, and we've created these raised planters at the perimeter of the building. And that's where we're capturing our stormwater and treating it before it's released from the site. And we have created a more celebrated entry at the intersection of Pfeiffer and Tamal Vista. But really the everyday use is the other lobby along Tamal Vista, closer to the mail room and the entry drive. And then we do have some stair access along Lucky Drive at the bottom down there next to the corporate yard. And then we have a direct access for fire up to the podium as well down in the corner there at Lucky Drive. That's it, Keith.
I'd also like to point out that the just beyond the entry to the garage is where all the building services such as trash, will take place, and also located along that entry drive is a move-in space for new residents. Going up to the second floor, it's really this repeat of what's happening down below in terms of the parking garage. But on the second floor facing Tamal Vista, we have residential units, which are there to help achieve the unit count, but also, again, to screen the garage visually from the street. And then up at the third floor, and levels 3, 4, 5, and 6 are basically the same, except for the amenity space that you see there. This is where the majority of the residential units are located, all around this amenitized courtyard. Mark, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, why don't we go to the enlargement, Keith, on the next slide? I believe, no, there you go. So the targeted resident here is family. It's 3 and 4 bedrooms. So we tried to provide opportunities for all generations. The amenity room really is an expanded lounge space, and we have some nice outdoor seating outside the amenity room. And then off to the right, we have areas closer to we have 2 barbecues and some tables. And then we have tot lot for the children, and then the teen area is on the left over there. It's all called the game lounge or game terrace. That would be the cornhole, ladder, ping pong tables. And then we have some little hideaway places because people do like to get away from each other once in a while. And so down at the bottom down there, we have a pottery and some quiet seating down there next to the access for fire up to the podium. What we have done here is created these low planters, 24 inches and 30 inches high along the perimeter of the building. Not only are we capturing rainwater in those lighter green areas, but it also allows us to plant bigger trees. So we have about 84 trees being proposed on the entire site, a third of them on the podium here and the other 2/3 on the ground. So we are coming back and putting in quite a few trees on the site. But like you said, we have a lot of generations here. You could be living with your grandparents, or you could have small children. So we try to provide amenities for everybody. And don't forget about the fitness room on the ground floor. And then there's also an indoor teen room, which could be a tutoring room or a game room, a computer game room, or something like that. Okay, Keith?
I'd also like to point out that we are not requesting a waiver for open space. We're actually meeting the required open space on a per unit basis. So here's some quick building sections just to help you understand how the building works. The top one, as you can see, that's Tamal Vista on the right. And you can see the 4 levels of residential above the parking garage, the residential units that are lining the second floor facing Tamal Vista, and then the amenity area on the ground floor facing Tamal Vista. And then you can also see how we've had to raise the site in order to not only get above the floodplain, but above projected future flood plain numbers. So, and Mark can go into more detail. I think when we get into the rendering stuff, you can point out these the the planters that we're using to screen and step down along the edge of the building.
Yep.
Just really quickly, these elevations are here really just to show the not only the concept and the architecture, but the use of materials and the way we're not only the movement up and down at the upper level, the parapets, but the change in color as well as the ins and outs. You can see those the lighter color elements that we're calling the sawtooth elements are proud of the rest of the elements or further out, and then you can see those recess areas between those to break up the massing, as well as the corner element here, which is kind of center of each of these two elevations, which are both of the street facing elevations along Tamal Vista and Pfeiffer. Also to point out the different use of not only color but material. This is a combination of stucco and thin brick veneer. So you see that center corner tower at the intersection is proposed as brick, and then the brick also lines the ground floor along with larger windows to help activate that space. Here are the two elevations along the south elevation and west side, basically showing that we're using that same architectural language to create movement and break up the mass of the building.
And then I'd like to point out, Keith, the street trees, we work closely with planning and the Public Works Department on the street trees. So those will all be new in cutouts in the sidewalk. We have an expanded sidewalk. So we'll have 3 layers. We'll have the raised planters against the building. We'll have trees in front of those raised planters, and then we'll have trees adjacent to the street.
And then here's just a color board showing the variety of colors proposed on the buildings and variation between wall planes, the panels between the windows, the thin brick veneer, a number of different elements to create movement and variety on the face of the building. And then, so what does that really look like? Here's a rendering of the intersection at Pfeiffer and Tamal Vista. The overall concept here was really to create a very kind of subtle, sophisticated look at the intersection here, because it is the scale of the building is a little larger. We didn't want to do anything too bold and try to keep it pretty simple, but also create a lot of movement and a lot of up and down in order to break up the mass of the building. So what you see here is those in the light colored elements are those sawtooth elements that we mentioned. And then you can see the deep recesses between those on both sides of the street. And then this corner element, which is accentuated by a brick veneer that goes all the way up. And then you can kind of see it peeking through the trees at the first level there, but that first floor with all the active spaces there, also kind of celebrated with that brick veneer. And then the planters that start stepping down towards the street. And this also showcases one of the kind of the grand stairs at the entry at the intersection there. And then in the back, you can kind of see how Mark has done a great job of burying a pedestrian ramp into the planter there that you can't even really see to make the corner entry there accessible. I don't know, Mark, if you wanted to add.
No, I don't think so, Keith. Once again, I think we've done a really good job about screening the parking, and it just looks like a residential project on a lot.
I guess with that, I think, Amy, if I could just turn it back to you, and we're here to answer any questions and take comments.
Great. Thank you for that presentation. The microphone volume just went up a lot too, but I'll just try to keep it far away. Yeah, that would be great. So at this point, this is the opportunity for you all to provide feedback and comments. We're going to do so at the podium. And because we have so many people, we're going to do 3 minutes. So just keep in mind that we're very early in the process, so we may not have answers to questions. What we're really hoping to get is your initial feedback, your comments, so then we can provide everything to the applicant and to the Planning Commission. So the Planning Commission meeting, study session, also very early in the project, is next Tuesday. So we'll be providing all the input that you provide tonight, put it on the website, but we'll also provide it to our Planning Commission as well. And so if people would like to queue up here, we can turn this microphone on. and we'll do 3 minutes each, and then we'll go to everyone that's on Zoom. Are you ready for that, Claire?
Yeah, I'm gonna put a timer on screen. Keith, can you go ahead and end your share for right now? And I'm gonna put the timer on the screen for everyone.
State who the applicant is.
The applicant is GemCore Development Partners, and then their team includes architects and landscape architects and civil engineers. The architect and landscape architect obviously just did the presentation on Zoom. The architect will be present at the Planning Commission meeting next Tuesday as well.
And we will be taking all of your questions back as well. So we'll be getting responses to your questions, and then we can post that to the website and email everyone tonight as well.
I'm curious, has a traffic study been performed at peak travel times, including rush hour in the morning and the evening, and when school begins and lets out at Redwood and also at Hall Middle School? And then additionally, I did not hear mention of how many parking spaces there are for the 99 units.
163.
Thank you.
Do I get an answer now?
We're in the feedback process right now. So we are doing an environmental review document. So questions and feedbacks that you have will be incorporated into our responses.
Thank you.
I had a question, first of all, that I wanted to ask earlier. This is going to be 100% low-income housing, rental housing, correct? Could you explain how the financing is going to work, the mortgage on that?
Question that we can get back to you on, but that would be for the applicant to put a response together. But that's a great question, so we'll have that. Do
Okay.
you have any feedback or comments that you'd like to provide?
Okay, I'm just wondering if there's any, detail available on that. It's a pretty important question.
Yes,
I
we
would think.
we will
Okay.
get that answer to you.
Now, my concern, as I pointed out earlier, is the concentration of these 700 units that we're supposed to build over the next several years. They are literally concentrated, 50% of them, within 1,700 feet of one another, all in the same area of Corte Madera. It's an area that already is congested with traffic. If you try and get on 101 heading north, it's easier to head south on 101, come down to Tamalpais and come around. Given what's happened in Pacific Palisades recently, we should be aware of concentration of population. If there are 430 units in this area, just in this area, okay, that's more than 50% of the 700 required. These are 3 and 4 bedroom units. Let's assume there's an average of 3.5 people per unit. You're talking 1,400 people squeezed within less than 2,000 feet of each other. How many cars is that? How many cars will be able to get out if there is a problem, okay? I think these are serious questions. And why was so much of the requirement concentrated in one little area? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I would also ask our governing body here, will we give in to each developer as this comes along? The zoning for this unit for this property is 54 units. The developer wants 99 units. This 54 units was just upgraded last year. Remember, we were told in 2023, they upgraded the zoning. They upgraded this property from a lower standard to 54. And now all of a sudden we're going to double that. This is the beginning of all of these housing units start, okay? This kind of is going to be the pattern, and we'll be able to look back at this and say, well, that's all right. We did it for Tamalpais. We can do it on the next project. I think there has to be discipline on the part of our governing body Hold on, we've got 7 years. You don't have to do everything right away, all right?
Thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you. Thank you.
Greetings, my name is David Mahler, and so I just want to bring up that Corte Madera has a very strong climate action plan and a very strong climate emergency resolution, which are primarily focused on reducing greenhouse gas emissions with certain targets. So my question about this development is the developer ready to commit to going all electric? And if not, this project will increase greenhouse gas emissions and climate pollution rather than reducing it. So that's a really key question, whether they're willing to commit to that at this point in time. Clearly, that's what the community wants. That's where our society is headed. And I think the developers should be ready to commit to that right now. The other thing I would like to point out, this building will be here a long time, whatever size it happens to end up being. And so those parking spaces should be anticipating that even at the beginning, a lot of the drivers are going to have electric vehicles. And over time, more and more of the residents are going to have electric vehicles. And this development should be set out from day one to basically, as time goes on, to provide all the parking spaces in it with electric vehicle charging, because that's where they're headed. So it's a real key question. Whatever size it ends up, however tall it ends up, is not having it make our climate crisis worse, and that early commitment to going all electric. Thank you very much. Oh, hold your applause. Just one other thing. By going all electric, it makes it a lot safer for the residents in terms of there's no risk of fires related to gas, natural gas use. And also makes it a lot healthier for the residents because there's none of the noxious gases inside their residences from burning gas inside. All right, thank you.
Hello, I moved in here in 1962, and I've seen a lot of changes over those years. Traffic has become an absolute nightmare. I'm concerned about the lack of water. I've already spoken. We don't have new reservoirs yet going in, and yet we're building in Marin. It's not just Corte Madera, it's Marin. And I went through the drought where we were only allowed 3 gallons per person a day. You didn't take showers except every 3rd day. You didn't wash your dog or your car. You didn't do, it's a lot. I'm with the traffic, I can tell you, took me 20 minutes to get from Harbor Drive, which is on the east side, to 101 the other day. It's ridiculous. I can walk it in 5 minutes. It's crazy. It took me 45 minutes to get from San Anselmo to Corte Madera the other day. Traffic on 101, as I'm sure you all know, is a nightmare. And I'm also concerned about the fire hazard. My niece and her fiance live in Pacific Palisades, so I know it up close and personal. Looking around, we have lots of trees, and the fire department has told us, one of these days, TAM's going up. And we need the water to fight that, or we're going to have another LA. It's just nuts. I don't know, I'm just really frustrated with the whole thing. I live right on Harbor and Paradise. And the traffic that is coming down from east to west to get to 101 is amazing. I don't know where these people are coming from. People say, well, they're coming off the freeway and coming around, they're going all the way through Tiburon to come around. I don't think that's it. But I don't know where they're coming from, frankly. And it's just crazy. It's just crazy. We've got to do something about We only have, if you had to get out of here in a fire or a flood, I've been flooded 3 times where I am. A major flood, which this is in a flood zone, it looks like to me, if I'm not mistaken. How are people going to get out of here? How many lives are we going to lose? They lost 27 so far in LA. How many are we going to lose? And what are we willing to do it?
Thank you for your comments. I realize the timer is behind you all, so I'll try to give you a warning at 1 minute here.
Hi, I'm also a longtime resident of Corte Madera. I have a long list of questions, some of which have already been asked. So I'm going to try to jump around and skip the ones that I think we've heard before. My main question and plea, I guess, is for complete transparency, both from our government here in Corte Madera, all of the people who work for the town of Corte Madera, the architects, and the builders. So a lot of these questions have to do with financials. The apartments are rentals. I'd like to know exactly how much a 3 or 4 bedroom apartment is going to rent for. If it's entirely dependent on the person's income, I'd like to see a chart that shows you have to make this much money and spend this much money per month on the apartment. I think that's really important that we know that, because my gut feeling is that these so-called affordable apartments may not be so affordable after all. And not only that, but I read that the affordability piece disappears. I'd like to know at what point the affordability piece disappears. When does this project revert to market price and market value, so that suddenly whoever owns this building, and I'm assuming that's the developer, is making a whole lot more money, which is probably why they need 99 units. Okay, another question. How much will the parking spots cost? They're supposedly 163, is that correct? Just at a gut level, I'm thinking for multifamily apartments with probably a minimum of 2 people per apartment, that means 2 cars. That's not 163 parking spaces. Where are all the other people going to park? What streets provide parking in that area? Because 200 parking spots might be the bare minimum, and you're not even offering that.
You're at
Another
less than a
question.
minute, just letting you know.
How much revenue will the town of Corte Madera receive from this project? Tax revenue, whatever other kind of revenue there might be. I'd like to know that. I think we're never, ever told much about the financials. I'd like to know if the additional revenue that comes into the town is going to be spent specifically to ameliorate all of the issues that everybody here has brought up tonight: fire, water, traffic, height, lack of being able to see our famous mountain. I mean, Tamal Vista, some of these apartments will have a vista of Tamalpais, but anybody on the east side of that building will no longer have a vista of the mountain. I'd like to know.
Thank you for your comments. But if you have more questions
I do.
afterwards,
Lots more.
we're happy to take your questions afterwards too.
Okay, thanks.
Hello. How do you propose to deal with the fact that Lucky Drive floods, Pfeiffer floods, and sometimes 101 floods at the Lucky Drive exit entrance? Secondly, have you had meetings already on other possible sites? And when will the final decision be made on the sites selected? There was one thing I didn't understand, or couldn't hear very well when the man was talking. He said something about building up because it's in a marsh, former marsh, and on landfill. Will that increase how many stories this looks like? Is it 6 plus another story for cement, whatever you're proposing to build? Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I am really emotional because I live right across from this monstrosity that is being. I live right across from this monstrosity that is being proposed. Number one, everybody very eloquently addressed a lot of the concerns that I have with the traffic, with the number of people, 3, 4 bedrooms, how many people are in there, how many cars are going to be there. Today, I went to take pictures at 8:24, at 10:30, at 12 o'clock, at 12:30, at 2:30, at 6 o'clock. And the entire time, Lucky Drive and Tamal Vista are totally stop and go. If my address is on Lucky Drive, basically. So I'm looking straight at this building of 2 stories. And I'm standing there listening to this idea of this 6-story place filled with people. It's just like 100 units with 3, 4 people, 5 people, their family, they have 3, 4 bedrooms. So, it's possible to have that. Why are we even considering something that is supposed to be 2-story? Would it being replaced with something that is 6-story to just make some developer even richer? And the density factor, the traffic everybody mentioned and so on, so I'm not gonna talk about that. The density factor is just arbitrarily over there because it's now commercial area. People haven't lived there. And I want the city of Corte Madera to really think about what happened and is happening in Marin City. The population and, how this is going to be a disaster for those of us who are living in that area and even those who just travel through the area. And thank you very much for your time.
I want to reiterate what the gentleman said about making this project all electric and making it in accord with our climate action plans and generally making it, understand the developer's intent on having 100% affordable, but I'd like to see how those categories are mixed in this project, that we actually do have a mix and it's not a ghetto for very low income or the bottom rungs of that categorization. I think that's very important. And I also, I'm thinking that the likely residents in this project will be younger families. They're not like most of us here. And they're likely to be active folks. And they're going to be aware that Sandra Marker Trail is nearby, the path along Corte Madera Creek. Our town and Larkspur have done a lot in the last decade to making bicycling actually a viable alternative. And now with electric bikes, you can buy an electric bike for 1/10 of what it'll cost you, probably even less than that, what it'll cost you to have a car. And the maintenance is likewise minuscule. It's an alternative for people to get to the ferry or get to San Rafael. We have a tunnel going to San Rafael. You don't even have to go over a hill. So I would like to see in this project more bicycle parking because they really minimize the bicycle parking. And also I think they're asking for a waiver on the providing charging stations for the cars. That's not in accord with what this town wants. And so I think if we need to use whatever moral leverage we have to make sure that this project is in accord with the community we want it to be. Thank you.
It's like we have one more speaker here and then we'll go to Zoom and then we can come back here too if there are others. Three more speakers here and then we'll go to Zoom.
Hi, thanks. I just want to start out by saying that I am really glad to see this project proposed and will be excited to see it built. My niece graduated from TAM 3 years ago and only one friend of hers has returned to Marin. And that woman's parents bought her a house here. Nobody else can afford to come home. I have 2 college-age kids now. I'd really, really like them to have the option to return to Marin. And there is very, very few jobs that you can have in Marin where you can afford any housing at all. We talk about this as low-income housing. You know, comments about the ghetto. These are professionals that can afford, that will be living in this house at $80,000 a year. These are not, you know, this is the sort of housing that our children need so that they can return and they can have families here. And so I'd really like to see that. I was really glad to hear the last speaker bring up the electrical bikes. There's been a lot of talk about traffic. There is a lot of data about how you deal with traffic. We do not have more traffic in Marin due to out of control building. Our population is barely higher than what it was in 1973. We've grown 15,000 in all of the county Marin from 240,000 to 253,000. We don't have traffic because of too much housing. We have traffic because of car dependency. If we want to reduce traffic, we reduce car dependency. When I went to school in California, every child had the option of taking a school bus and it was free to the family. We've pretty much done away with those. My kids never, ever had an option to take a school bus. I had to drive them down Sir Francis Drake every day. We can bring back transit. We can ask for more transit to be serving this area. That will help quite a bit. Electric bikes, the last speaker spoke of, that is terrific. We can do so much more to support the great bike infrastructure we have. I rode my bike to the Corte Madera Safeway the other day. The bike rack was full. The parking lot was more than half empty. That tells me we have wrong ratios going. If we want people that move into this development to not use cars, the best way to do that is to reduce the parking that is available to them. You will attract people that are working in our local schools, in our local shops, and will reduce traffic. So anyway, I'm excited about this project. I want to see it built. I hope it's an option for my kids someday. And let's do what we can to fix the traffic problems. Thanks.
Let's move on to our next speaker. If you all want to talk, you can go out into the hallway. Yes. We're going to move on to the next speaker. All right, sir. Ma'am, so this is why we talked about having an inclusive meeting that's free from disruption. So you two can go out in the hall if you want to talk, but we're going to go to our next speaker. Sir, your turn.
I'd like to give half a minute to this lady. I'd like to have a dialogue here. You can ask your question on my time, madam.
Would you like to provide some feedback?
I hear a commentary, architectural verbiage, different colors, and to perhaps hide the verticality of this project. And then I look at the picture, and to my mind, it's a giant disconnect. This is a very large, out of proportion building to the surrounding areas. It has a very institutional look to it, to my mind. I don't know in what forum this would win an architectural award. I certainly would not vote to give it. It's just disproportionate. And I second the notion of the traffic and the concentration in this area. And then there are larger issues. Do we really need more housing? Isn't California, aren't we in a population decline? I don't know I don't want to get into that. Want to but I think people should who are more knowledgeable than I am. I just think it's disproportionate. I think it's profit motive driven. Who's excited about having this building come into their community? I certainly am not. Thank you.
Your comments. All right, we have 3 more comments in the room and then we will move to Zoom.
All right. So appreciate what everybody said. A lot of great things. I'm going to try not to cover the same topics. When you do the traffic study, do the study in the rain, because when there's rain in the morning, the traffic doubles getting to Redwood, because everybody's like, Daddy can have a ride to school. I know that firsthand. That's what happens. It's impossible. I live on Chickasaw. You cannot turn onto Tamal Vista when that happens. You can't do it. Next, the height. It's atrocious. I really like getting off of Lucky Drive and seeing buildings. So I think bigger there is great. I don't want to see the nice hillside. I'm sick of seeing trees. So the height's great. No, cut it down. Just cut it in half. It's way too high. Go with the original proposals that were in the town plan that everybody worked so hard on. Stick with it. And then the last consideration is elementary schools. It's a big influx. If this is supposed to be affordable housing, which would be awesome if it actually is, especially for teachers to be able to live close. The elementary schools don't have a lot of capacity, and it's not the physical structures. There's not enough teachers. So make sure when you're doing planning for families that the ratios and the budgets for the school district also can handle an influx of kids. There's a lot of fundraising that goes on outside of the schools in order to pay for the kids' curriculum. So let's not crush the budgets. That's it.
Good evening, and thank you for showing up. I think it's important that we have our input. I do live in Corte Madera, just to clarify that. Have for over 50 years. Sorry, is it better? I'm concerned about all of the issues that have been brought up already, so I don't need to cover those. I am concerned about when you talked about the climate and the use of electrical vehicles. Electrical vehicles have batteries, lithium batteries, that are having problems with starting fires. You got a fire in a parking structure with people living above, very dangerous in my opinion. I think it needs to be addressed. I'm concerned about the building height. I see 6 stories, and then on a couple of the renderings, there's something sticking up on top of those, which I assume are lights. I don't know, but now you've got lights shining down. People who live in the Lucky group of condominiums are going to just love having all that light shine down. I'm being facetious. It is supposed to be affordable housing. Okay, somebody, excuse me, somebody moves in and they qualify for affordable housing. Then they get a better job. Miracle. They make more money. What happens? Do they have to move out? This is supposed to be affordable housing. Are you going to allow them to stay? I don't see that that's going to ever be required, but it needs to be considered. Even if you put a deed requirement that they have to have affordable housing, if they grow out of that, what happens? So I think that needs to be addressed. And somebody addressed the water, which makes me very concerned because I also lived through raising children when we had the water shortage and the number of gallons that we could use for everything in the house per day. And then I wanted to talk about the fact that many of the units were 3 and 4 bedrooms. Why don't we limit it to 2 bedrooms with a few 3 bedrooms instead of including 4? That will limit, and supposedly these are affordable, need to be affordable housing. Do we really need to have the additional larger size I don't have a 4-bedroom house. I do have a house, but I do think that we need to consider a lot more about this whole development before it gets approved. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susie Beatty. A lot of these decisions and things that we've talked about today were already really covered in a certain way by the housing, what do you call what you did before? Yeah, the housing element, which the town spent, I think, almost 2 years or more, trying to figure out what locations could maybe be used for these kinds of things. It was a requirement, as I understand, for all towns to do that. So these locations are there. We are required to do and have housing for people who are teachers and people who are going to be working in our community. I think our job is to, I believe, is to make the very best of what we can of this. I believe that we do need this. I think our input, I'm so glad the town has these meetings because it allows us to have good input. The idea of being able to talk about having things all electric and going with the way our town wants. I think this is so valuable and important. And those are things that are just musts as far as I'm concerned. But things like, I was thinking about, do the windows open in those apartments? It doesn't look like they do from the outside. I wonder about that. I see that there doesn't seem to be a lot of outdoor space and decks and things like that for people to be exposed to the natural things around them and views and so forth at Mount Tam. I would hope that those things could be in there. It is a tall building. It is big. Thank goodness we're not looking at 15 stories like they are in San Rafael. But I think we need to make the best of this and move forward. And those other locations have already been chosen. We're going to have to do this again as, you know, we choose other spots for our kids to live in the community, our seniors to stay in the community, people like me who might be sort of, you know, my house I have that's worth a lot of money. I might have to sell it here in Corte Madera. I've lived here since 1976. You know, we need to have places for people like me to go. I'd like to be able to stay here. I do a lot of volunteering in the town. I'd like to stay. So think about that. That's all I think.
Hi, everyone. Tyler Jackson. I'm a Corte Madera resident, father of 3, nonprofit employee. I moved here I moved here 4 years ago, and I been really impressed with the town, the planning commission, and the housing element, and all the work that's gone into bringing affordable units into this community that's so well resourced. So many times the affordable units go into communities that have bad schools, not close to transportation, etc. It's really a gift that we have in Corte Madera to be able to give affordability to people in our community. I would love to see a portion of the units set aside for teachers, firefighters, police officers that live or work in the community. I think there'd be a way to set aside some of the units for that. If there isn't, maybe just a best effort. But I know, I mean, I zoomed into a meeting recently, and the police department was talking about double-digit vacancies they can't fill because they can't get anybody to come here to work because nobody can afford to live here, right? Same deal with teachers, same deal with people who are working in the hospitals, nonprofit employees, etc. So I think I've been kind of disappointed with all the negativity in this meeting. Today, I do agree. It's been insightful to hear all the concerns. Obviously, like living here, obviously traffic's an issue. It's a big building. We need to solve it somehow. We're not going to do it with a bunch of small buildings, right? So I think there needs to be a little more compromise, hopefully, in the room. But yeah, I'm very happy to see that we're at this stage of the process. We've got an actual proposal. Think about the people that are going to be living in those units. I mean, I think it would behoove the planning commission to tell some stories of the people, right, that live in affordable housing. You saw the numbers up there, right? You're not going to have homeless people along the streets, right? These are people who live in our community already. We want them to stay. We want them to come. It's a very important part of a thriving community, not just a bunch of wealthy single-family homes. So, thank you.
All right. Okay. While I appreciate the low-income housing for people who work in this area, this particular project is way out of line for this area. There is not one other project that is over 3 stories. This would be double that. It would look ridiculous. I'm sorry, it is not meant to be on that particular corner. Somebody pointed out, did anyone, I'm sure everyone saw what happened in Pacific Palisades. There was one access point. You saw burned cars. People had to leave their cars because they could not evacuate. This particular location is not a good location for such a project. Put it somewhere else, fine, but not there. I go every day there. I live in Larkspur. I go by. There is constant traffic. If you add another 200, 300 cars, and we have, God forbid, a fire, we need to evacuate, that is the choke point. We are going to have people dying. And I'm sorry to end it this way, but this is my thought. And I hope you take that into consideration. Thank you.
I see some hands on Zoom. I'm going to start with the first one. I see David. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to speak if you're ready. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Good evening, David McPherson, 30-year resident of Corte Madera. I have a number of comments that don't need to be addressed, but a couple of questions that I'd like to have answered once public comment is over. The bicycle parking seems to me you're going to need to accommodate at least 100 bicycles, and it would be wise to have 2 or 3 bike storage lockers rather than just a single one. Has the developer considered a shuttle that would take commuters to the SMART train and the ferry? Also, I understood that it's contemplated that wider sidewalks are planned for this project. And so I want you to coordinate with Department of Public Works to make sure that we have continuation of the Class 2 bike lanes, both on Lucky and on Tamal Vista. I noticed at RH when they developed it that they brought in very expensive, very mature trees. And if this project goes forward, I would encourage the developer to invest in mature, taller trees when the landscaping is done. The most important question that I have, though, is does the town actually have the political power to mandate a lower structure and a fewer units? There are certain rules that allow the developer to increase the number of units when they're affordable. And I don't know whether the town actually has the power to say, the project is too large and it's too tall. And together with that question, the question I have is the project feasible for the developer if the town determines that the top floor needs to be eliminated? Thank you.
All right. And then the next person I see with the hand raised is Linda. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to speak when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Linda Klein, and I'm the president of the HOA that is the 3-building condo right along Corte Madera Creek, across from one of the water maintenance buildings and kitty corner with Redwood High. And I appreciate the desire to bring in, graduates who parents want their kids to live in the area. I understand the desire for all that and wanting to address, the housing needs of the community and the mandate by the state. But I really do want to reiterate what has been said tonight, that that particular location is a choke point for this geography. As a resident here, to get to the freeway, to go north, I got to go under the freeway by Trader Joe's to get to the on-ramp. It is always backed up every single day. There's a high school, lots of cars. There's all that industry right off of the area on the other side of the freeway. It's the wrong spot, folks. I do really appreciate that you need to do this, but to put it right there where there is daily bottleneck it's the wrong spot. To go further down on the south side of 101 along Tamal Vista, there are a number of other business buildings that could be torn down, and this project would be much more accessible and departable for that added population. To put it right on the corner where this particular traffic problem exists for us already every single day just seems like a very poor choice. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person I see is Patty. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to speak when you're ready.
Thank you. I moved to Corte Madera in 1979. I initially volunteered on the Housing Advisory Committee, so I've kind of had my eye on housing in Corte Madera for a long, long time. When the San Clemente apartments were proposed, the community was so irate that they voted out all the people on the town council and put in a new council. I don't see anybody complaining about the San Clemente apartments at this point. So a lot of it is just resistance to change. I'm a big, big fan of affordable housing. The look of this really, really reminds me of San Quentin. I don't understand why there couldn't be some softness to it, some color to it, some design element that gives it something going for it and would decrease the focus on how tall it is. I would like to see something that's less stark and more welcoming. And I also hope that these amenities that you're talking about will be available to people in the community, the recreation facilities and game rooms and things like that. And I just want to say that I'm definitely a fan of making more affordable housing. It's a big problem for the teachers, for the firefighters, for everybody. I wondered if the Macy's site had been looked at. Now the people on the Bay side will get all upset because then they'll say, oh, you can't add a 6-story housing site on the Bay side because of the traffic. But it's got to go somewhere. We got to come up with these units based on the RENA numbers. So we have to bite the bullet and figure out what's going to be the least invasive and the most attractive and the most welcoming and serve the community and serve the people that live there. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. And I have a different David Lee next. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to speak, David, when you're ready. I'll restart this timer for you.
Great. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. I too am a fan of affordable housing, but I, like many of the speakers, have concern about I guess, the massive concentration of all the units into this one corridor. From what I can tell from your presentation, we're on the hook for 725 units. And from what that second gentleman that asked questions said, sounds like 400 of them are going to be concentrated in this intersection of Tamal Vista and Pfeiffer and Lucky. I do live in that condominium complex that's on Lucky Drive. And it does have a traffic issue, obviously during the peak times of the morning and the afternoon. And so I'm concerned about the extra 163 cars that are going to be using this massive structure that's being proposed. And if you just think about the afternoon time, a lot of times I do take the ferry into San Francisco, and there are a number of them running from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Depending on the day and which ferry, there's always traffic that starts to build up when the Redwood High kids release, and then the commute time adds traffic pressure as well. There's always kind of that traffic jam that happens between Lucky and the ferry building because of the people that are leaving Marin to go back to the East Bay. So that whole corridor along the Larkspur Landing area gets just packed with traffic. And this is just going to add another X% out of that 163 cars. So I'm very concerned about that. And I do wonder if if the council didn't explore diversifying some of the 725 unit needs in other areas that you showed in that map, because it seems like we are trying to cram that 400 into an area. It does act as a choke point for traffic and other type of quantity type things like that. So that's kind of my comment. Thank you, and appreciate it.
Thanks, David. Next, I see Lori C. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to speak when you're ready.
Hello, my name is Lori Calise. I've lived here about 20 years. I grew up in San Rafael, and I was lucky enough to be able to return to raise my daughter. My question is about the property tax. How will all these renters contribute to paying for police, fire, teachers, the library? I pay $1,000 to help our schools. And I don't have kids in the schools anymore. How will these people be a boon to our community instead of just taking away our services? I'm also concerned about the schools. I'm a former teacher. There was no way to get a substitute. If somebody left, that was an open position. I really am concerned about keeping the quality of our education. And as a teacher, I could not afford affordable housing in San Rafael when it went in. I didn't make enough. So I want to make sure that our beginning teachers will be able to afford that, as well as preschool teachers, which we're going to have a big need for. Our schools keep taking away the TK programs because they can't afford it, which puts a strain on the local preschools. We really need to look at, are there any parks near this huge building? I don't see one. You'll have to go all the way to Central Corte Madera for that. So what green spaces do they have? Also, is there any solar used in the construction of this? What green building techniques are going to be used? I really think it's time for us to make this 100% green as much as we can. I am concerned about the height, as other people said. The traffic is terrible there in the rain and not in the rain. You can't even make that Lucky exit. It is backed up onto the freeway going back to Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. I really hope the developers will spend time in our community at these peak times and see what the traffic flow is. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lori. The next person I'm seeing is Carlo. I'm going to allow you to speak when you're ready. Carlo, you should be able to unmute when you're ready. This is the last person. Yeah, I think this is the last person online. All right, doesn't look like, looks like you're having some trouble, Carlo. Feel free to, we're gonna have some contact information up here shortly, so you can feel free to forward your comments to the contacts that are provided via email. And I see that Lori has her hand up still. I'm assuming that's from before. So I'm gonna go ahead and lower your hand. Yep, I think that's it. Thanks.
Okay, so we have a couple closing slides for next steps, but if there's anyone else in the room that would like to speak. Yeah, well, let's get you on the microphone.
Regarding the San Clemente site, are there any statistics about how many teachers or firemen or policemen live there? I've always wondered, you know, if they actually are, these developments are being used by them.
We provide that information.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question regarding the developer. Is this a Section 8 accepted housing complex? Because I'm looking at the number of 3 and 4 bedroom units, and young people don't need 3 or 4 bedroom units. I know people are anticipating teachers and police officers and this and that, but just looking at it, is this a Section 8 housing project?
We can get that information for you too. All right, is there anyone else in the room? No, we're not answering questions right now. We're just getting feedback, but we're gonna close it with a couple slides. So if you want to talk afterwards, we'll be available.
Thank you all for your comments. As Amy mentioned, there's a planning commission, a study session on Tuesday night. If you're able to attend, it'll be at the same location. It starts at 7 p.m. And that'll be a more technical discussion, learn more about the project. And we will be putting all of these presentations on the project website. There's also a sign-in sheet at the back where you can leave your email address and you'll be added to the interested parties list. And then staff will send you periodic updates to let you know about upcoming meetings. And then we'll also post after this meeting some of the comments and concerns that we had and answer some of the questions that have been raised by all of you. So please be sure to sign up to be notified of the project. And this is my staff, my contact on the slide. This is my email and my phone number. I'm happy to meet with anyone outside of this meeting to go over questions or concerns that you have. So please feel free to reach out and email me. All of the information is being posted to our project website, which is on that slide. The current project plans are also on that. So it's a great resource and we'll continue to use it to put relevant information for this project on there. Also, if anyone does not receive weekly newsletters, I encourage you to sign up. That's a great way to learn about what's going on in the community, and we include information on all of our meetings in our newsletter. So with that, Amy, do you have any closing remarks before we end?
No, thank you very much for attending tonight. So this concludes the meeting. So we'll end the Zoom and then we're available if you want to come up and ask us questions.